Very often in pro wrestling, as Jim Ross famously said, "We're live, pal." Sometimes things go wrong, particularly when props and special effects add even more unpredictability to the mix. The table spot has become such a fan favorite in wrestling that it's just about impossible to attend or watch a wrestling show and not hear a "We want tables" chant at least once. Wrestling fans have become so obsessed with the idea of anyone, getting thrown through a table that the chant often pops up in moments where it doesn't even make any sense.
They chant for tables, "We want tables." You can have, the building could be on fire from a match and they'll still just want a wooden table.
What's annoying for the wrestlers involved is when the tables don't go along with the plan. There are several moments in wrestling history in which tables have gone rogue, but a couple of notable occasions come to mind specifically. In 2010, Natalya and Beth Phoenix's feud with Lay Cool culminated at the TLC pay-per-view in the first ever women's tables match. Naturally, in that era, there had to be a custom pink table for the ladies to use, and when Natalya attempted to push both Michelle McCool and Layla off the top rope and through that table, it didn't break. Since that's kind of a required element to finish a tables match, Natty did what she had to do to force it to break. She launched herself through her opponents and the table with a splash from the top rope, so it took a little extra work, but Natty got it done. Another time a table just didn't play nice was during a contract signing on SmackDown between Batista and Booker T in 2006. In contract signing segments, the table often ends up becoming a weapon. This time was no different, only one side of the table's legs gave out as Batista delivered a spinebuster, forcing the animal to simply do it again. Second time was the charm as he left Booker laying to set up their upcoming title match. Wrestlers have been getting tossed through glass windows and car windshields and hit over the head with glass picture frames forever. These instances would be great examples of when heeding WWE's "Don't try this at home" warning would be particularly prudent. But in most cases, props are often gimmicked to soften the blow to the receiving performers and thus the potential damage incurred. Sugar glass has often been used in the place of real glass for stunts, not just in pro wrestling but also in movies and television. At King of the Ring 2001, Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon were set to blow off a lengthy feud in a street fight that ultimately saw the two battling it out up the entry ramp and onto the stage. Underneath the Titantron were glass columns emblazoned with KOR logos for the event. As Angle tells the story, these were supposed to be fitted with sugar glass for a planned belly-to-belly suplex spot, where Shane would get launched through, but they were plexiglass.
It was accidental. They ordered the wrong glass.
When the Olympic champion hoisted McMahon the first time, he simply bounced off and landed awkwardly right on his head on the floor. After McMahon seemed relatively okay, Angle got him back up, added to his leverage, and sent him through the glass after all. Apparently, the spot called for him to do the same back through the other way on the adjacent pane, but again, on the first try, Shane just bounced off. Angle didn't want to take any chances of that happening again, so he simply rammed McMahon through head first instead. This, according to Angle, irked Vince McMahon tremendously after the fact. The Honky Tonk Man, Jeff Jarrett, Elias, and others have been entertaining wrestling fans for years, with not just their wrestling acumen, but also their favorite instrument, the guitar. And though Elias would probably hope otherwise, their playing isn't the draw. Chances are, when you see a wrestler come out with a guitar in hand, their ultimate goal is cracking it over the skull of a foe. And with guitars in wrestling, much like glass, they are supposed to be gimmicked. Usually they're made with soft balsa wood and have the interior framing removed. In his feud with Jake the Snake Roberts ramping up toward a match at WrestleMania 3, Honky Tonk Man appeared as a guest on Roberts' Snake Pit talk show, guitar in hand. After Jake teased him a bit with his snake, things turned sour, and with Roberts' back turned, Honky prepped for a guitar shot to put an exclamation point on the segment. Unfortunately, somehow this guitar was not at all gimmicked, and when Honky clocked Roberts, he suffered a serious injury to his vertebrae that he would describe in great detail years later.
C6 and C7 were completely turned to dust. They just, they exploded inside my neck.
Roberts says that Honky Tonk Man never apologized. Ladders are pretty dangerous to begin with, so making them part of a wrestling match can really cause some chaos. From falls from on high, ladder shots from one person to the other, missing the mark on a high spot, or unintentional ladder recoil, the danger level once a ladder or ladders come into the picture goes way up. An injury suffered by Joey Mercury exemplifies the risk. At Armageddon 2006, Mercury and his M&M partner Johnny Nitro were one of 3 teams challenging Paul London and Brian Kendrick for the WWE Tag Team Championships in a fatal 4-way ladder match. William Regal and Dave Taylor and the Hardy Boys were the other challengers. Roughly halfway through the match, Eminem and the Hardys were in the corner where 2 ladders were placed perpendicular on top of one another. As Matt Hardy delivered a double noggin knocker to Eminem, Jeff launched himself over the trio and onto one of the ladders below, with the intent of catapulting the other end of the ladder back up into the faces of Mercury and Nitro. Unfortunately for Mercury, the ladder shot up much more quickly than anticipated, and he took the impact directly to his face. His nose was fractured in 4 places, he got 20 stitches inside and out, and his eyes swelled shut, Mercury told WWE.com. I'd have to say it felt like a 100-pound steel ladder connecting with my face at 100 miles per hour, or going headfirst through a windshield of a car without a seatbelt on, or maybe getting hit in the face with a baseball bat swung by Sammy Sosa. The Elimination Chamber match, first introduced in WWE in 2002 and now a premium live event unto itself, was a novel concept. The match has 6 participants, with 2 starting the match while others are locked in pods and let out in random order. The match takes place inside a fully enclosed steel chamber, complete with an elevated steel floor for extra carnage, and sometimes things don't go to plan. In 2015, the semi-main event was a match for the vacant Intercontinental Championship, featuring King Wade Barrett, Mark Henry, R-Truth, Ryback, Sheamus, and Dolph Ziggler. At one point, Barrett launched Ziggler toward the pod containing Henry, who, according to Ziggler, wasn't supposed to enter the match for another 20 minutes. But when Ziggler hit the pod, the plexiglass panel simply came out of its groove. A perplexed Henry just sort of stood there for a second, as Ziggler, from the ground below, says he told him repeatedly not to come in. Henry either didn't hear him or made his own decision, which was probably the best move, since otherwise he would have just stood there with a wide-open pod. From there, the participants simply had to improvise, and Ziggler found himself calling a match on the fly for 6 people.
That was some of the most exciting 12 minutes of my life in a terrible, terrible match.
8 years after their clash at WrestleMania 6, Hulk Hogan and The Ultimate Warrior faced off again as Hollywood Hogan and The Warrior at WCW Halloween Havoc 1998. It's not well regarded. Even former WCW President Eric Bischoff said it pretty much stunk up the joint. The end of the match featured Warrior in deep conversation with the referee while a downed Hogan crawled to the corner fiddling with, well, something he pulled out from his tights. He fumbled through a plastic bag that clearly contained a lighter and what was then revealed to be flash paper. Unfortunately, maybe because he was sweating and bleeding all over it, it didn't quite light like he intended. He thought it did, though, gesturing it toward Warrior, who sold the whole lot of nothing before it all flared in Hogan's hands instead. Presumably, this was supposed to be part of the match's finish, but these two were now left to improvise. Ultimately, Hogan won after interference from Bischoff and a chair-wielding Horace Hogan. You'd think the match after, where Goldberg retained his title against Diamond Dallas Page, would be the pay-per-view's saving grace, and fans really did like the match, but the broadcast feed cut off before the match ended, leaving fans still thinking about the Hogan-Warrior debacle. At WCW's Clash of the Champions 24 in 1993, the British Bulldog and Sting were set to reveal their mystery partner alongside Dustin Rhodes for an upcoming War Games match at Fall Brawl. After a whole bunch of largely unintelligible yelling back and forth from Bulldog and Sid Vicious, Sting was given the honors of introducing the man of the hour, the Shockmaster. Following Sting's intro and some weird pyro and smoke, a large man in a furry vest and a bedazzled Star Wars stormtrooper helmet came barreling through, tumbling to the floor with his helmet falling off of his head. That man was Fred Ottman, the former Tugboat and Typhoon in WWE. Hilarity continued as the Shockmaster began hand gestures that were at first accompanied by no audio. Then an ultra-gravelly voice, that of Ole Anderson, started talking about something no one remembers because they were still laughing about the fall. Ottman later explained to WWE.com, "The wall itself was kind of like you'd build a normal wall in your house, and there was a board just below my knee that was there for support. I was told, you're going to have to hit this wall really hard to bust out because it wasn't a gimmick wall. So I put my hands above my head, double axe handle, and when I got the cue, I was going to blast through the wall. Well, I blew the top out, but didn't take that bottom board out."
But the momentum, I was the human teeter-totter, man. Whoop, and then off came the helmet like a champagne cork.
At AEW Revolution in 2021, the main event was the culmination of a feud between AEW World Champion Kenny Omega and former champ Jon Moxley, a rematch after Omega turned heel and took the belt off Moxley with help from Don Callis. They decided that the only way to settle this would be in an exploding barbed wire death match for the title, where after a 30-minute timer ran out, the ring would detonate. The expectation was something at least visually spectacular. Exploding barbed wire death matches have happened often in Japan, and usually ended with a satisfying but safe bang. At the end of what was otherwise a fantastic match on a solid card, Eddie Kingston ran to the ring to aid a downed and handcuffed Moxley, who had just lost the match after taking a one-winged angel through a steel chair. Unable to free Moxley, Kingston appeared to sacrifice himself, laying on top of him in preparation for the big boom. Then, essentially 4 large sparklers went off from each corner of the ring, followed by what can only be described as some mediocre fireworks. Smoke was everywhere. Commentator Excalibur lightly exclaimed, "Oh my god," in an effort to save things a bit, and that was that. In storyline, Omega built the exploding ring, so after the match, Moxley told the live crowd, Kenny Omega may be a tough son of a but he can't make an exploding ring worth it. AEW President and CEO Tony Khan followed in the post-show scrum, saying, "I think we're all lucky that the bomb going off at the end didn't really hurt anybody. Kenny's big master plan, he built a dud."